What's up kings, what's up queens? Today's video is going to be on the benefits of semen retention as it has been advocated for by a number of famous Hindu sages. This topic was requested repeatedly by one of my subscribers. He asked me to speak about the belief of brahmacharya, or that cultivation of life force energy, as it was in reference to one sage in particular, Swami Dayananda Saraswati. But for the context of this video, I'm going to talk about Dayananda Saraswati's beliefs along with other famous Hindu sages and what they've said on this discipline, this incredibly potent, powerful discipline. So I'm going to start with Swami Sivananda. He wrote this book, The Practice of Brahmacharya. He is probably the most recognizable name from the Hindu lineage on this practice. And here's what he says. As a king is no king without a treasury, subjects and an army, as a flower is no flower without fragrance, as a river is no river without water, so also a man is no man without brahmacharya. Ahara, nidra, bhaya, and metunya, food, sleep, fear, and copulation, are common to both animals and men. That which differentiates a man from an animal is dharma, the principle of cosmic order, vivek, which means discrimination, and vichar shakti, self-inquiry. Knowledge and discrimination can be secured only by the preservation of virya, which is your energy. If a man has not got these qualifications, he should really be reckoned as a veritable animal only. The next sage I'm going to mention is Swami Brahmananda. Here's what he says. Without strict brahmacharya, it is not possible for anyone to hold fast to great ideals. To secure the full development and vitality of body, brain, and mind, brahmacharya is essential. Those who observe strict brahmacharya develop a strong memory and a remarkable capacity for understanding. By means of brahmacharya, a special nerve is developed which brings about these wonderful powers. Do you know why our great teachers have laid so much emphasis on brahmacharya? It is because they knew that if a man fails in this respect, everything is lost. The strict brahmacharyan does not lose his vitality. He may not look like a pahalwan, a great athlete, but the development of his brain is so fine that his capacity for grasping supersensuous things is remarkable. I think it's very interesting that Swami Brahmananda mentions that without this practice, it's very hard for someone to hold fast to great ideals. And this reminded me of a strange habit that I lost after I started practicing this discipline. I used to have a habit of telling small white lies all the time. It would manifest in ways where if someone said, "How long is it going to take you to get to my place?" I would say 10 minutes when it really was 30. Or if someone asked me, "Do you want to go to a baseball game?" I would say yes and then just back out at the last minute. I had already determined that I wouldn't want to go see the baseball game, but I wouldn't say no in the moment. In all these ways, I would tell white lies all the time. And as soon as I really started taking the practice of semen retention seriously, I noticed that it becomes so difficult to keep up with those lies. When people ask me, "Do you want to do this thing?" I would just say no. And then they'd be a little taken aback and then say, "Oh, are you just busy that day?" And then I would just respond, "No, I just don't want to." You know, in Hindu culture, the saying of the truth is one of the highest ideals you can have. Satya, it's the highest virtue. And so the practice of brahmacharya inherently is tied to that virtue. The next sage I'm going to be reading from is Swami Vivekananda, who might be my favorite sage of all time. Here's what he says. All the forces that are working in the body in their highest become ojas. You must remember that it is only a question of transformation. The same force which is working outside as electricity or magnetism will become changed into inner force. The yogis say that the part of the human energy which is expressed as sex energy in sexual thought, when checked and controlled, easily becomes changed into ojas. And as the Muladhara, which is your lowest, your root chakra in the 7-chakra system, as the Muladhara guides these, the yogi pays particular attention to that center. He tries to take up all his sexual energy and convert it into ojas. It is only the chaste man or woman who can make the ojas rise and store it in the brain. That is why chastity has always been considered the highest virtue. A man feels that if he is unchaste, spirituality goes away. He loses mental vigor and moral stamina. The next sage I'm going to read from is Swami Ramakrishna, who was actually the guru. He was the spiritual master of Swami Vivekananda. As the story goes, Vivekananda was an atheist and he had accidentally been forced to go into this temple, and Ramakrishna recognized that Vivekananda had a capacity to be a great spiritual master, and so he kicked him on the head with his foot. He just tapped him on the head, and so Vivekananda, as a result of that contact, went into a deep, what is called samadhi, a deep spiritual bliss consciousness for hours, I think for 3 days. And when he emerged out of it, he lost his old identity and he became Vivekananda, the great saint. But here's what Ramakrishna had said on this practice. To be able to realize God, one must practice absolute continence. Sages like Sukadev are an example of an Urdhva, one whose energy flows upwards. Urdhva means the perfect celibate. Their chastity was absolutely unbroken. There was another class, which previously had had discharges of semen, but who later on have controlled them. A man controlling the seminal fluid for 12 years develops a special power. He grows a new inner nerve called the nerve of memory. Through that nerve, he remembers all. He understands all. Loss of semen impairs the strength, but it does not injure one if one loses it in a dream. And that's an important point to note because so many people have these questions about, wet dreams as they practice this discipline. I think there is a slight loss of energy, maybe a day or two with a wet dream, but it's not nearly as much as a conscious release. And this is backed up by Sri Ramakrishna himself, who said that, it's really the conscious releases that are draining to the male body. Sri Aurobindo is the next saint. Here's what he says. The sex energy can be controlled and diverted from the sex purpose and used for aesthetic and artistic or other creation and productiveness, or preserved for heightening of the intellectual or other energies. Entirely controlled, it can be turned into a force of spiritual energy also. This was well known in ancient India and was described as the conversion of Retas into Ojas by Brahmacharya. Retas, the sex fluid, consists of two elements, one meant for sex purposes, the other as a basis of general energy, and if the sex action is not indulged and the sex fluid is prevented from being spent away, it turns into ojas. The whole theory of Brahmacharya is based upon that by the yogis. And now, from the words of Swami Dayananda Saraswati specifically, this was what my subscriber had requested, and here's what I could find on his insights on Brahmacharya. The vital energy of one who conserves his vital fluid is greatly enhanced. Even if he becomes ill on account of his past karma, the strong vital energy will prevent the disease from assuming a serious proportion. He will make a speedy recovery and overcome its consequent weakness much sooner. Suppose a non-celibate takes 1 month's time for complete recovery, the celibate would get well within a week. And this is something I've noticed in myself as well. My capacity to be healthy, just to prevent disease, is significantly higher after this practice. I would get sick every January, especially when I was a teacher, being around all those germs. I would get like brutally sick every, that second half of the winter, around January through March. And it just doesn't happen anymore. Alongside that, I maintain amazingly high energy levels, maybe dangerous levels of energy. Sometimes it turns into anger, as I mentioned in a previous video. And yet it is a force to carry oneself with, and it feels tremendous, tremendously empowering for a man. And according to the sages, this practice is also beneficial for women, although I think it blooms in a different way in a woman. Now, the language of these saints is very aggressive. They advocate what is called Akhand Brahmacharya, or like the strictest form of celibacy. I think every man needs to decide for himself how strictly he wants to take his practice. I mean, the more strictly you take it, the more spiritual growth you'll have alongside the physical benefits as well, with energy and charisma, all those things, the development of that Oja Shakti. It definitely is heightened the stricter your discipline is. That being said, I think Akhand Brahmacharya, that strictest form of celibacy, is certainly not for every man, maybe not even for most men. But even if you could have that degree of control where maybe you're just having karezza sex, which is sex very slowly without releasing, or if you just cut back significantly on the amount you release, even once every 90 days would make you feel tremendously energetic and tremendously strong. And I just throw that in as a caveat because people have different goals, people have different objectives to use this energy for. My greatest motivation with doing this discipline is to let my artistry out, to be a better actor, a better orator, a better friend, a better communicator. That's where I derive my source of inspiration for this discipline. If you're new to the channel, my name is Nikhil. This channel is about combining Eastern spirituality with Western productivity because I found that the best results in my life have come when I've combined both ends, the esoteric and the tactical. And in that regard, I want to speak to the creative and the entrepreneur, the people who want to bring their own inner artistry out into the world. So if that appeals to you, consider subscribing. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to connect with me further, you can follow me on Instagram. And with that being said, for those of us who are willing to practice this stern, ancient discipline that enables us, that emboldens us, that gives us our potency in the world, that gives us a productive anger, to us I say, greatness is coming. Cheers guys, I'll see you soon.
Oh Sikandar, Sikandar, oh Sikandar, झाँक ले, झाँक ले, झाँक ले दिल के अंदर, oh